If you've seen the news in the past few days, you will have seen the truly awful images of a young father and his 2-year-old daughter who drowned in the Rio Grande River while trying to illegally enter the United States. The pictures are so distressing we won't show them tonight. But the deaths of the poor El Salvadorians are ammunition for the critics of President Donald Trump and his obsession with building a $15 billion wall on the US-Mexico border. He says it's the best way to keep unwanted refugees out of America. But his opponents scream it's an obscene waste of money, which won't work. Fair enough, except Donald Trump is essentially just following the lead of other global leaders who've built very similar walls. El Paso in Texas used to be considered the Wild West. It was the edge of America, on the border with Mexico, where old Western movies featured cowboys and Mexicans fighting it out.
Out in the West Texas town of El Paso, I fell in love with a Mexican girl.
Today, it's a modern city, but now there's a new battle raging around the half-built border wall that divides the two countries.
As you can see, the wall ends there. It's very easy for them to come across.
US Border Patrol agent Carlos Antunes works on the front line of a distressing crisis.
No deje nada de basura. Si dejó una bolsa, recójala y llévesela.
It's his job to arrest immigrants crossing the border to the US illegally. And lately, he's been run off his feet.
Señor, venga para acá.
In the last 6 months, over 500,000 refugees from Central America have come to the US to seek asylum. Are you okay? You okay? Every day, another 4,600 arrive. That's 200 an hour. It's an extraordinary scene to watch. A never-ending trail of refugees walking around an unfinished border wall and into a dense US city. It's a lot of people.
Yes, it is. So, I mean, it's non-stop, day and night.
How difficult is that to manage?
It's a bit difficult because we were not prepared for this.
But the US isn't alone. Globally, the world is experiencing the biggest mass movement of people ever recorded, with 68 million displaced worldwide.
These people are not peaceful.
So it's not surprising that governments in wealthier countries are tightening their immigration laws and building barriers to keep refugees out. Over the last 4 years, 6 border walls have gone up in Europe.
The border wall makes people feel like they're really protected in ways that they aren't.
Professor Josiah Heyman is director of the Centre for Border Studies at the University of Texas. He says border walls are a waste of money.
We are in a period of nationalism. We're in a period of aging societies that are trying to cling to the past and are fearful of change.
Build that wall. Build that wall.
President Trump knows a popular vote when he sees one, which is why finishing the border wall was one of his headline policies. It helped get him elected, but at a cost of $15 billion, it's ignited a controversial battle across the nation.
I want to build the wall. We stop the drugs. We shore up the border.
A wall is an immorality.
We have some bad hombres here, and we're going to get them out.
This is what it's all about. We're only 15 minutes from the US city of El Paso, yet the wall literally just stops here, making it an easy crossing for illegal immigrants. There are sensors, but they can just walk across. In fact, 2/3 of the 3,000-kilometre US border with Mexico is just like this. There's no wall, no fence, nothing. And that's what President Trump is so obsessed about fixing.
Ustedes vienen solos, ¿verdad? ¿Usted viene con ella?
For Carlos Antunes, the refugee crisis is a tricky topic. He grew up in El Paso, but only after his family waited for years in Mexico to gain legal residency to come and live here.
This group is mainly from El Salvador
And now he's the one processing those refugees who won't enter the US the legal way, instead coming around, under or through the border wall illegally.
I'm trying to figure what the fastest way to get there is.
What's happening down there?
They had illegal entries.
On patrol with Carlos, we're chasing some men who've managed to get over the wall, trying to evade authorities.
They're hiding.
They're hiding. So these guys potentially armed, or?
Very risky because we don't know who's actually coming in. Give me a second.
CCTV cameras have caught the men out, and within minutes of the border breach, Carlos and other patrol agents arrive at this abandoned building to search for them. Oh, they found one. All three men are found and arrested.
¿Usted ha vivido en Estados Unidos ya? Ponga la mano en la cabeza.
It's a small win in a never-ending battle. Closer to the city, under a freeway, another 46 refugees walk around a gap in the wall and turn themselves over to Border Patrol officers. They're all from countries in Central America, like El Salvador and Guatemala. For the rest of the morning, they just keep coming. And coming and coming. So a couple of people have just run over the border now and making their way over by the train there.
Right. And eventually they're going to walk this way to where there's agents.
So we're in the United States, that's Mexico, and there's no border wall dividing the two countries.
Exactly.
And the migrants can just walk over.
They'll just walk across.
Another day, a different country, but we see exactly the same scene.
They're running away right now from people who want to do damage to them. He was keep looking back, and they just flee.
We're on the border, but this time on the Mexican side in Juarez. Yesterday, we were just some 50 metres away in Texas. And like yesterday, there's another group of migrants who are making the short journey over. There's the wall that ends just there. They're simply going to walk around it, and they're in US territory. Professor Heyman believes the massive wave of refugees has been influenced by Trump's insistence the wall will be finished soon. Are people trying to get in before it's complete?
We think that an important part of the influx is people trying to get into the United States. Getting in before the wall's completed.
Trump is having some success with his wall, having been granted $1 billion to help fix the gaps in cities like El Paso. For Carlos, working at the coalface of the unfinished border wall, the refugee crisis is now one great big challenge.
It's been like this for the last 7-8 months, where it's nonstop, day and night. We end up with over 1,000 apprehensions.
So as US Border Patrol officers, would it make your life easier if President Trump's wall was built?
In the areas that they're looking at building that wall, absolutely.
Still to come, the walls that work.
This town now one of the safest community town in the world.
How Europe solved its migrant crisis. To anyone seeking asylum, they're simply not welcome here. That's next on 60 Minutes.
Gonna build that wall up to the sky.
The United States isn't the only country with a border dilemma.
But now you
Ponga la mano en la cabeza. ¿Ya vivió en Estados Unidos ya? No deje nada de basura. Si dejó una bolsa, recójala y llévesela.
Europe was overwhelmed in 2015 with over 1 million refugees from war-torn Syria and Iraq. So, like the US, many countries started building border walls to keep them out. At the height of the refugee crisis 4 years ago, tens of thousands of refugees made the journey through this Serbian farmland, hoping to cross the border into Hungary and further into Europe. But now anyone trying to cross over is faced with this great big fence, and they simply can't go any further. Why did you build the fence in the first place?
Every day they could come across these green borders, because this is only just a field. They broke into our houses, our farms, they stolen bicycles, cars. So it was a very dangerous situation.
Hungarian local mayor Laszlo Torcsky was angry when his tiny rural town of Asathallom was inundated by desperate refugees passing through in search of a better life.
They didn't respect our law, they didn't respect our border. This is my problem, you know. For example, this main square, this park was like a migrant camp.
Fighting back, the mayor successfully lobbied the Hungarian government for a border wall to lock out the migrants. Very quickly, these two parallel 3-metre high walls were built, spanning the border Hungary shares with Serbia.
This town now one of the safest community town in the world. I think this is very good, and we need to protect all the borders.
And that's exactly what's happened right across Europe. At the same time Hungary erected its border wall, 5 other countries did the same thing. Bulgaria built a border wall along the Turkish border, Macedonia along the Greek border, another wall in Slovenia on the Croatian border, and Austria built a fence along the border with Italy. France, together with Britain, also built a 1-kilometre wall in Calais to stop illegal migrants gaining access to the Channel Tunnel from France to the UK. In Hungary, the wall did its job, and the refugees stopped coming. With the refugee crisis now over, the 170-kilometre wall stands defiantly. It's now just an ugly and symbolic reminder to anyone seeking asylum that they're simply not welcome here. Is the wall here still necessary?
We need this border fence because this mass immigration could happen in the future again.
Back in the US, the illegal refugees keep coming. But a gap in the wall isn't necessarily their ticket to freedom. They face an unknown future in overcrowded processing centres, or increasingly, US immigration officials are sending many back to Mexico. They arrive devastated and lonely at refugee shelters like this one in Juarez. 22-year-old Santiago was separated from his sister, who's just 15. She was allowed to stay in the US while he was sent back. A surprising decision, considering family separations were banned by the US last year.
It was very sad when they took her away from me. I cried, and there's nothing I could do. And my only hope is that if she got released, so they can send her to my brother in the United States.
Like thousands of other refugees now stuck in Mexico, Santiago's in limbo, waiting for his asylum claim to be heard in a US immigration court later this year.
Which is the biggest problem, is those who cross the border are interviewed and they are waiting for an answer.
Politician Ramon Galindo is in charge of all the shelters in the Juarez region of Mexico. He says his city is now drowning in migrants who are waiting for their US asylum claims to be heard.
Right now we have 2,400, but every day it increases. So we think in a couple of months, we're going to have here about 10,000 people waiting for an answer and with no permission to work.
Border expert Professor Josiah Heyman says the US immigration court system is actually the problem that needs fixing, not the wall.
So this perfect wall that keeps everything out doesn't actually deal with that breakdown of the immigration court system. It doesn't pay for judges. It doesn't provide people with legal counsel.
So the focus should be off the wall and on the causes of mass migration.
The focus needs to be on the causes of mass migration. No matter how perfect a wall, no matter how perfect a barrier, no matter how seamless and gigantic and tall you imagine it, it doesn't address the issue.
Gonna build that wall up to the sky.
In the meantime, US Border Patrol agent Carlos Antunes continues processing the thousands of illegal immigrants crossing on a daily basis into El Paso. But he hopes for change soon. If Trump builds the whole wall across the border with the US and Mexico, will you still have a job?
Absolutely. They're going to find a way to get around it, over it, under it. So we can build the wall and we're still going to have those issues.
One day that wall is gonna fall.
Hello, I'm Sarah Abo. Thanks for watching. To keep up with the latest from 60 Minutes Australia, make sure you subscribe to our channel. You can also download the 9Now app for full episodes and other exclusive 60 Minutes content.